Time now for the word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me now is Tortoise Senior Portfolio Manager and Managing Director, Rob Thummel. Also with me is Mark Tepper. Rob, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. So let's take a look at futures this morning. We actually have a little bit of a kick to our start of our Thursday. Dow up 32, S&P up 13, NASDAQ is 65. Oil prices are actually moving lower ahead of OPEC Plus's meeting on Sunday. They are considering hiking output in October to regain market share. This is a lot of worries right now about a supply glut out there that's going to keep pushing prices down. And then Russian output is consistent despite disruptions by Ukrainian strikes on their refineries. So are there opportunities do you see here right now in the energy space?
Yeah, except we think that the energy sector is really evolving, Cheryl, and that electricity is actually the new oil. So oil's an opportunity, but electricity actually is the new oil. And actually, in my 30 years of investing in the energy sector, it's probably one of the best times to be investing in the energy sector. So companies like Vistra Corporation, which is one of the largest electricity providers of independent electricity, it's effectively helping this AI boom and provide all this electricity that's happening with the AI development.
Interesting. You know, I think we've said this so many times, Mark, with you, but we're going to need all the energy for AI data centers. We're going to need coal in it. We're going to need coal, nuclear,
correct,
even wind, solar, whatever.
And Rob, so we own Cameco, which is North America's largest sourcer of uranium. That's technically a materials stock, not an energy stock, but we view it as an energy play. And Kinder Morgan, which is your natural gas pipelines, both of which are going to certainly be necessary for us to power those AI data centers going forward.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of plays to be made. I'm glad you brought that up, Rob. Let's take a look at yields, guys, because obviously we're seeing yields actually fall a little bit. This is interesting because there's all these bets about a rate cut. Look at the 2-year and the 10-year. You know, the 10-year is at 4.201%, Mark. That's a 2 basis point drop. We haven't seen this since the end of April.
And we need that to continue coming down, especially as we need to refinance more and more of our government debt. But at 4.5%, that has, over the last several years, been a problematic level for stocks. That is where you see those 9-10% sell-offs at 4.5. So at 4.2, I feel pretty good about that. But at the end of the day, what's most important right now, what investors are really looking at is when is the Fed going to cut rates? Because rates are far too restrictive right now. We need to get those rates lower. Seems like there's a 97% chance of a cut later this month. We shall see if that happens. It should happen because we need to make capital more affordable for American households and also for businesses who employ everyone who lives in those households.
Well, and Rob, you know, we're going to get jolts out. Excuse me, we already got July jolts out. That was a 10-month low for hiring. Job openings sliding to 7.181 million. But ADP is out today. August jobs report out tomorrow. And the reason that we're so focused on the jobs report, Rob, right now is because of the Fed decision. I mean, this could be, because you heard Jerome Powell and Jackson Hole more and more talk about the employment picture, you know, backing off of the inflation story, more about jobs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Inflation, though, is important as well. And you just mentioned oil prices are down. Oil prices affect, energy prices affect everything. So with lower oil prices, that's going to help keep inflation lower. But from a jobs perspective, we're going to figure out how this AI boom affects jobs. It may take away some jobs, but it's probably going to create a lot of jobs in terms of constructing all these data centers around the U.S.
Oh, that's interesting you bring that up. Just really quick, this is the first jobs report that we're going to get since President Trump actually fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner. And by the way, here's the expectation, 75,000 non-farm employment rate at 4.3%. So we'll see what we get here, Mark. But at the same time, there's a lot of talk about this testimony today from Stephen Moran. Obviously, he's the pick to join the Fed Board of Governors. What are you expecting from
Well, it seems like we're getting a more dovish Fed, which is where we need to be. I mean, no one knows where the neutral rate is, and the neutral rate is, kind of in between restrictive or easy money. It might be 3.5%, 3.25, somewhere in that range. We need to get closer to that. I mean, obviously, inflation is moderating. Even Jay Powell mentioned that, well, if there's any effect from tariffs, it'll be very, very short-lived. Okay, so let's hope he's correct on that.
There was a big turnaround there, Mr. Powell.
But the labor landscape has weakened, and we need to ensure that we have a more dovish Fed so that we can bring rates. We don't necessarily need easy money right now, but we can't be in restrictive territory. That's problematic.
Well, but Christopher Waller, Rob, he is arguing for multiple rate cuts. He's actually spoken out. He spoke out last week, the week before. And he's saying, and you know, he's got others on his side. He was one of the dissenters in the last meeting. So, you know, I think that's something else that's going to come up today, obviously, with Stephen Moran. You know, but the bigger question is the Fed's independence.
Yeah.
And that has been a big topic among many on Wall Street.
Yeah, no, I do think there's concern about the economy slowing a bit, and obviously the unemployment rate rising. We don't anticipate that happening. You know, we look at global energy. I look at it from a global energy perspective, and I see OPEC wanting to increase production. In some ways, that may mean that the global economy is doing just fine. But we watch that very closely, and the fact that oil prices have fallen so much could be a leading indicator that, hey, the economy is slowing more than what people are expecting.
That's interesting. Well, no, and if you do get that slowdown, and if we do get a rough jobs report tomorrow, I said this before, you know, President Trump's probably not going to be happy with that. At the same time, we have to ask ourselves if we can trust the data. The market's really going to depend on it. We have nothing else.
The BLS needs more than a new commissioner. I applaud President Trump for doing that, but they need a new formula. You know, number one, survey responses have dwindled over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, so no one participates in them anymore. You've got all these seasonal adjustments. You've got the birth-death adjustment, which is just a completely fabricated number. We need to rewrite that formula.
So you think businesses and their fax machines aren't really the most effective way to come up with jobs data?
That is definitely not the best way.
The response rate's down to like 43%.
Which is crazy. It was over 60 pre-COVID. That's how fast it's dropped.
Yeah, there are new technologies available if anybody from the Bureau is watching this morning. Rob, thank you so much for being here.